like we're all good to go.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect. We are live. So hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our CASP Academic Year Kickoff student performance. My name is Kimberly Rodriguez Jimenez. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am the CASP office manager, and I will be the moderator for this performance and this Q&A. But now I'd like to go ahead and introduce AJ Gallo, who will tell a little bit more about himself. AJ, would you like to take that away?
Yeah, sure. My name's Amadeo, aka AJ Gallo. I am a fourth year starting this week. I'm in sixth college. I've been in the CASP cohort since 2017. I'm a he, him, his kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I'm a visual arts media student here at UCSD. Have been for a while now. So, yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So today we have a really special treat because today AJ will be talking a little bit more about his current project in the works. I'm going to go ahead and share our screen for some cover art that he did for the film, and then I'll also let AJ share a little bit more about the inspiration behind it. So AJ, I know you mentioned that you were working on this current film and it's been in the works for a couple of years from what I've heard. Sentient Double-Dip Rip Scorn to direct plug. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about like the inspiration behind this film, maybe like what is it about, some underlying themes, and then the inspiration behind the cover art as well, because you designed this as well.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. So the first conception of RIP began in Cat 3. It was a science fiction writing course, right? Where the prompt was we had to make a science fiction film at the end. And it started with this idea of a bunch of space rangers, right? Then that got retconned. And then we turned to this idea of social media and this idea of the sort of collective hive mind of internet surveillance, of this sort of Patriot Act type stuff. And it slowly evolved into the tale of this cyborg hero, and on the opposite end, this robot villain, right? And they're clashing over their ideals as to whether we should think collectively and peacefully or individually and turbulently. And that's where those two characters kind of clash. And there's this scientist who's very instrumental in the events of this first RIP project. And then when we move into the second one, he becomes the villain. And then it's sort of, we've got these three wild cards who are constantly changing sides, all clashing for who will control cyberspace and thereby the world.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So that's a little synopsis, you know.
Yeah. And so what are some of the themes that were behind it? Like, I know you mentioned that there is definitely heavy sci-fi. I know that you mentioned a little bit about more on like of a critical argument in regards to maybe like just the Patriot Act, tech industry and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thematically, there's a lot of stuff about sort of manipulating and commodifying the individual and using the individual as a tool to further a greater sort of corporate interests. And I feel like it's sort of a catharsis for a lot of the anxieties that people these days may have about sort of the sort of Apple data collection, you know, where it's like you say the name or you say the quote from some movie and then it shows up in your recommended and it's like, ooh, somebody's listening to me and selling my data. That's pretty funny. And it's like you don't look something up, but you say something and then you get an ad for it, you know? It's sort of that commodification of your daily life and people slowly being whittled down to less and less of individuals and used by these corporations that's definitely a thing that we're trying to forward with these ideas in these films. But also it's a very sort of, as you can see from the poster, it's a very tongue-in-cheek sort of action-packed 80s themed sci-fi adventure, you know. We've got the sort of the all-American hero wearing his plaid, you know, he sort of represents the hero at the start who's slowly corrupted by greed and by his own personal interests. And then we have the cyborg character who, despite being manufactured to run this corporate entity, slowly becomes more and more of an individual as time goes on. And slowly realizes perhaps his own interests besides those macro corporate things. And then we have the ego-obsessed scientist, you know, who starts out as this grunt and then slowly, as he's put down further and further, ends up rising up and shaking things up, right? So a lot of it is about how these macro ideas affect these three individual characters, but at the same time, it's like they're screaming, they're shooting lasers at one another, you know, they're hacking, they're just clicking keyboards randomly. It's a good time. So yeah, no, and again, it is very much all of those themes through this very fun, very cheesy, very enjoyable lens, hopefully.
Yeah. And I think that brings a good balance, you know, in the sense of like, yes, trying to go for this image of like 80s cheesy VHS type of like vibe, but also talking about very serious topics that like a lot of people could understand, like, oh yeah, like the idea of like my information and data being out in the big cyber web because we all have a little computer GPS like in the back of our pocket. That's definitely very interesting. And then I know you have a lot of names like on this as well. So I'm assuming these are like some of your collaborators. Do you want to talk a little bit more about like what each person maybe like had a role in regards to like coming up with this film and this idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the collaborators for me are really not just what makes the process sustainable, but it's also kind of what makes the process worthwhile, right? Like first and foremost, we've got Zach Fishman. He is sort of my chief narrative collaborator, right? We wrote a whole lot of the Rip videos together, and he plays Rip Scorn himself. And he has this fantastic spontaneity about him where it's like, where I feel like a lot of the time I get bogged down in the logic brain of it, where he can really just breeze through it and create something that's effortlessly funny and also thematically deep at the same time. And to top it all off, he's also a fantastic composer, and he does the music for everything. So he's the conceptual, he's a very chief conceptualizer, a star, and at the same time a composer in post-production. So he's epic. He's doing it all. And then additionally, playing lead, the sort of all-American hero corporate type, is Jason Isengard. He's a fantastic actor. It's like you put a script in front of him, and in moments, it's like he can read it, he can have the essence, and then he can sort of improvise further on top of that and make the scene something really special that maybe you couldn't have even foreseen when you were writing it. And then, dude, my boy Conrad Jones. Conrad, right down the hall right now, he's a big brain psychological type where it's like he can take the spontaneity and the silliness that Zach and I come up with, and he can really fish some truly brilliant themes, and he can flesh those out. And we actually did an independent study recently, and that was a lot of the work that went into it, was the psychological fleshing out of the characters and the deepening of the story with he and Zach at the table. And then we got Brian Chen, the director of photography, Supreme. He's got the rig, he's got the skills to pay the bills. It's like you point him in a direction with the director's monitor, he can angle it, he can like make it look perfect. The depth of understanding that he has of cameras is extremely instrumental to making sure that these projects actually look the way that we not only want them to look, but look good in a way that I couldn't even conceptualize because I don't have the same understanding of the equipment that he does. So he's awesome. And then lastly, but not leastly, we've got Carlos Garcia, who during the last run, he did a lot of the pre-production for the shots, where he did a bunch of the shot lists, he did a bunch of organization, he did a bunch of the harsh colored lighting that is so important to distinguishing each of these characters and demonstrating who is in power at any particular moment. Where I think that's the great thing about Rip, and I think that Carlos got like perfectly when he lit a good few of these scenes, is that it's not subtle. Like, as you can see on sort of this cover, everyone is very clearly assigned a primary color to kind of display, okay, they're all on even footing, but they're also all very bold, brash, and unique. But, you know, we really want to distinguish, we want to show who's who, and visually with the color, we want to show who's in power. And again, that's some of the stuff that Carlos's lighting did really well. So yeah, that's the crew, bro.
Awesome. Oh yeah, and like definitely I can imagine, like I've already seen a couple people saying like how much they really like the concept and the idea of the movie. So I can only just imagine once this full project is able to be produced and people are able to see, I'm sure that people will love it. It also has that, again, like that feeling of nostalgia because it is such like an oldie retro movie that it's like it would seem like it's a classic, but again, talking about very relevant and current issues as well. But thank you so much for talking a little bit more about this project. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen real quick. And I do know that AJ, you did share some exclusive footage with us that we'll be sharing on our social media after our live. So this will definitely give people a little taste of Rip before it's hitting the big screens, which I'm sure it will at some point. And definitely looking forward to it. But just to have our guests and our viewers learn a little bit more about yourself, wanted to swing into some Q&A and just, again, have them get to know. So my first question is, what made you start looking into film production, directing? What really made you start on the trek of film?
Well, really, we got to start with we've got to start with the big one. We got to start with Star Wars, right? Because I remember in the 3rd grade, I had that moment where I was doing these drawings and I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? I want to make worlds. I want to do this stuff that Lucas does in Revenge of the Sith, which had come out a couple years prior. But really it's like when you come down to it, it's like I've always been very obsessive with these sort of franchisal visual narratives where it's like, even go back to the VHS copies of Thomas the Tank Engine. It's like I was watching that stuff so obsessively the tapes wouldn't work. And like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, which is very much a macho man hero's narrative that it's like, and even watching those films, sometimes I go back and I look at those first things that I obsessed over and I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing that. Like, I feel like that there's a few upcoming projects that I think both of those aesthetics will play very well into. But yeah, so I'd say it came from the sort of obsessive childhood, but very distinctly from that moment with Star Wars. And also, almost forgot, big sprawling narratives like Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think were also very, very, very instrumental in sort of my development, where it's like, you see a compassionate character overcoming this sort of insurmountable goal and you go, maybe if I conduct myself that way, then I can do that. And then it's like, and that feels really good. And then it's like, you realize that maybe you can make other people feel the same way. And it's an exciting feeling. So I'd say that's an inspiration.
Yeah, awesome. And like inspiration as well as like these role models who also made you feel like, oh, like I can do this. Like this is something I can do and I want to do. Especially like their style later on being able to form you and kind of like what you like to do as well in film or storyboard creation or whatever that may be, world creation as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, it's one of those things where only very recently I had that epiphany that these are just people,
Yeah, people just like all of us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know you already mentioned like George Lucas being like one of these influential people, but like what are some other writers, film producers, artists, other figures that inspire a lot of your work, whether that would have been Rip and that saga or other work that you've done as well?
Well, if I'm talking about inspirations, I got to talk about visual storytelling, which means I got to go to Matt Rhodes, who's this awesome concept designer at BioWare and EA. He did the Mass Effect games. And after I watched this TED Talk of his where he talks about how a character's design should tell you everything you need to know about the character without hearing a single word, and that's so inspirational. Like, oh, wow. It's like seeing a person, it's like instantly there's that information that it's like you don't even register like on a surface level, but deep down, you do. You kind of understand them just by looking at them. And I had a brief correspondence with him, and he was quite encouraging. I sent him some art, and he gave me some pointers, and since then I've been trying to exercise them the best I can. He's a killer guy. And to speak of that visual storytelling thing, that he did a 300 painting series with no dialogue, no speech bubbles, no character names, no nothing. And just from start to finish, you experience this story completely visually and you understand it. It's brilliant. So he's a big one. Also, you know, I love that technology, that technological innovation, and those people working on Mandalorian right now, where they're revolutionizing sort of the green screen, where it's like a TV that has pre-rendered visual effects on the back of it, so you capture it all in camera, making it so much more believable than any of the green screen technology we had before. It's like, and again, that coming from sort of the understanding that all photography is light, you know, it's like, it's really quite brilliant. So those guys too. Those are some people.
Oh yeah, and again, like a lot of these things are either like Mandalorian. I'm sure I can already imagine how many people are obsessed with it. So for you to be actually able to see people aside from just the actors and like their talent and how much they contribute to the storyline as well, I think is phenomenal as well. Awesome. My next question for you is, do you feel like your passion for film, video production, world creation, whatever that may be, has impacted your journey at UC San Diego at all, whether as like a student, on your personal life, as like a creative individual, and if so, how?
Absolutely. 100%, I would say. I don't think there are any classes that I choose without thinking about the visual art element. Okay, am I going to be able to exercise the passion here? Am I not? Is this going to help supplement some other work? You know, like I'm taking some biblical art, and in the fall or in the winter, hopefully I'll be able to take some Dante, which is very important to another upcoming project that I'm currently going to be developing this year. But yeah, it guides it very, 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 very much so, I would say, especially in terms of like, which professors do you pick, you know, which classmates are you going to try and have in your courses? It's like, who do you want to collaborate with? It's instrumental, I would say. Totally.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then what are maybe like some helpful tips, words of wisdom that you would have somebody who maybe is just starting their interest in film, some other performing visual art, to get that first step in the door?
Well, I would say that it's like a muscle, and it can be flexed, it can be worked. It's going to be weak at first, and it's going to be weak for a while, but over time, it's going to get stronger, it's going to get better, it's going to get faster. And if you're studying what you want to study, and you're investing yourself in what you want to invest in, and if you're actively trying to improve, as long as you're trying to be better today than you were yesterday at your craft, it's like you can't go wrong. It's like, worst case, you're submerging yourself in this thing that you truly enjoy and a passion of yours. And I think only good can come of that. So if you're trying to get into it, you know, I don't want to sound reductionist here and say it's as simple as get into it, but it kind of is as simple as get into it. And it's like, over time, you get the eye for it. And over time, you kind of, you feel it in yourself, you know. It takes time. It's a learning curve. You're not going to be perfect, but you don't have to be. You just got to be, again, better today than you were yesterday. And another really big one is to surround yourself with people who inspire you, who you think that are maybe even better than you. Because I had a fear of that for a little bit, but you know, it took that sort of that simple moment of going, hey, I think the stuff that you're working on is pretty cool. What do you think about this film? What do you think about this and that and the other? And then it's like, you have that first little simple conversation. And then it's like, look, I have a good, I would say all these people that I'm currently bunking with here, I feel like they have all surpassed me in terms of their creative powers. But I'm so delighted to have them around, you know, and it's like, and when I look at their work, it inspires me to do better with my own stuff, you know, and it's like, talk about having that conversation of, I love your work, I think you're great, and I'd want to maybe work with you. Now I'm living with all those people. So, you know, just reach out.
Yeah, start building your community. And again,
Absolutely.
very passionate about. And as I'm sure a lot of our viewers can see how genuine you are and like your care and love for like film, like the film art industry, things like that, the right people will see it and they'll want to also invest in you the same way.
Yeah, that's the hope anyway, right?
And I'm sure that based off all the projects that you've mentioned before, other people can see it as well.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure, again, like a lot of the people that are seeing this will be seeing those words, and maybe this will be their push to be able to explore that as well.
Do it.
Awesome. And then my last question for you, which I'm sure will be very extensive.
Oh boy.
What are your projects you have coming up now? I know you mentioned RIP and you've been working
Yes.
on that. Maybe you want to talk a little bit more about like the full concept of it, if there's anything else in the works that we should be expecting from you soon.
Well, you know, I mean, the hope is that all of these get knocked out and it's perfect from start to finish, and then it's like it's fully produced, it's out there for everyone to see. But you know, it may be that a few of these things don't end up happening, but you know, the hope is that it all gets done. So I recently did receive, this this admission to the Trells program, where I will be working on I'll be working on visual development, concept art, and designs, some key art for an ongoing story that I've been working on for like the last like 5 years. It's all about some personal family history. It's about dealing with grief, overcoming it. And similarly, in the vein of the original Star Wars trilogy and stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender, themes like compassion and like easing the suffering of others are going to be some very core themes, you know. So that's going to be an ongoing one that's going to go into the future for probably a good while. But in terms of the short term, right now, a good buddy of mine, Conrad, he's submitting a few films to a festival, adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe stories that I have acted in. That was very exciting. Hopefully those will be available soon. You can visit his website right now at conradjones.productions. Or is it conradhjones.productions? I think it's conradjones.productions. But you can see the trailer for the film that I am in, The Power of Words. Yeah, so that's another one that's coming down the pipeline. There's another great film that I acted in by him called The Sphinx. There's a couple musicals by, again, aforementioned musician, Zach Fishman. We've got one, Trouble in the Tunnels in the Sky, and its sequels as well, which are in development, where it's sort of these adventurer type Indiana Jones treasure hunters, and they're sort of their internal feuds, sort of an Indy Belloc situation, but rather than having one framed as a villain, they're sort of all our collective protagonists. It's very interesting. There's another medieval monk video where a bunch of monks abandon a monastery and go start a band together. And they should all be a blast. Additionally, let's see, what else is coming down the pipeline? There is, this weekend, Zach's little brother, Nathan Fishman, if you're watching this, shout out to you. He's working on a short film that we'll be shooting this weekend. It's action oriented, very punchy, sort of a shoot 'em up action sort of thing. It should be a very good time. We're keeping it contained to a small area. But we're very excited to get the rig going. And it's always delightful to pull in, you know, more talent. Like Nathan is an incredible writer. My brother Gianni, he's got this excellent skill with 3D modeling and printing. He's an engineering student. He did a lot of the props for RIP, actually. He did a lot of there's an outlet on the forehead and there's a 3D printed headpiece as well, and some geometrics for the RIP chin. And Gianni was totally instrumental in doing all that. My sister Mia is going to be doing makeup for stuff. So it's like, slowly we're expanding, and it's like we're harnessing all of our sort of familial talents and powers, and we'll hopefully be combining them all very soon. The group groweth, of course, at a safe distance with COVID-19, but no, it's been great developing all this stuff, and it should be even better going forward.
No, and again, I'm definitely excited to see all of those works. Again, all of the links that are available, like to see the trailer and things like that, we will include on our social media. So have people definitely check that out. So happy to hear about the Trails project. I'm so excited to see that. Excited about the music, the movie festivals. Again,
Yeah.
you all get banger reviews as well. And yeah, like just that, it seems again like that love for film and the industry, but also that combination of your chosen film family along with like your biological blood family and just being able to mesh together so well. It's very, very, very heartwarming.
Yeah. And another really delightful thing is that sometimes in the search for extras, it's like, well, who do we have for this part? Who do we have for that part? And then you end up calling up a friend you haven't talked to in like 8 years. And it's like, hey, you want to do a voice in this thing? And it's like, yeah. And now it's like, and we're talking again every now and again. And it's like, it is kind of weirdly a venue to sort of unite all these people. It's really delightful.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like I can already tell so many people are already seeing like your passion and just like your interest for it. And like I'm sure that transposes beautifully into all of the works that you do as well. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And again, I'm sure we all cannot wait to see future projects that you'll be having, but everything that is available for all of us to see, we will share on our social media and definitely give shout outs to all of your collaborators because again, they all form a really important part in this process as well. Before closing off for today's Q&A virtual performance, just wanted to say thank you so much, AJ, for taking some time to come and chat with me and share a little bit more about your upcoming projects. Again, like I'm very excited to hear about all of these, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers are as well. Thank you to everyone who's joining us for our live feed, or if you're rewatching this video, thank you for taking the time. AJ is very passionate about everything that he does, and I'm sure that you all can feel that as well through this video performance. AJ, if you have any plugs you would like to share with us before, I know we'll definitely be sharing that exclusive on our social media, and I'll also add your Instagram handle to that post. So if you're not following us on our Instagram, make sure to do so you can check out some work from AJ and all of his collaborators as well. And yeah, just keep an eye out for what AJ has coming because I've known you for a while, AJ, and I feel like I always hear you having such amazing ideas, and I'm so happy to see so many more projects coming your way as well. So
thank you. Yeah. After that heartfelt thing, I almost feel bad plugging my stuff. It's like, oh yeah, thanks. And by the way, check out my Instagram.
That's the point. We want everyone to see your love.
All right, you can follow me on Instagram at __AJ_G__. Every now and again, if we're doing a shoot, I'll post some fun BTS on my story. I can't say I'm the most active, but honestly, after this, I've been oomphed by a good number of the creative team to perhaps upload some things. Maybe now's the time. Who knows?
Yeah, and can't wait to see you working on more stuff, of course, while being socially distancing and doing all the proper safety protocols because we want you to be healthy so you can promote awesome ideas.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everyone who joined us for this live performance. If you want to hear more about AJ, definitely check him out on our social media. If you ever want to reach out to him and maybe have your own ideas about collaborating with AJ, I'm sure he would love to work with you or chat with you. He's a great person, so definitely say check him out.
Yeah.
That is the end of our live stream. AJ, any last words before we head out?
It's been a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty then. Bye, y'all. Keep an eye out for our future events, and we'll be seeing y'all soon. Bye.